America's story is a roller coaster of triumphs and reckonings, of bold dreams and painful truths. Did you know the U.S. doubled in size overnight with one land deal? Or that the economy once collapsed so hard, soup lines stretched for blocks, and banks vanished overnight? These aren't dusty textbook moments. They're the turning points that still shape how we live, vote, protest, and dream today. This is the top 10 most important events in American history, told not as a timeline, but as a story that's still unfolding. Welcome to USA Revealed. If you're new, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Number 10, the Declaration of Independence, 1776. Adopted on July 4th, 1776, it wasn't just a bold statement. It was a thunderclap that echoed around the world. Penned primarily by Thomas Jefferson, this revolutionary document declared that the 13 American colonies were no longer under British rule. But it wasn't just about politics. It was about principle. All men are created equal, it proclaimed. A radical idea at the time, challenging monarchies and empires alike. Fed up with taxation without representation, oppressive laws, and a distant king who seemed deaf to their grievances, the colonists had had enough. This declaration was their breakup letter to Britain, and it was fiery, idealistic, and unapologetically rebellious. The Continental Congress knew they were risking everything, their lives, their land, their futures. But they believed in a vision of a free and self-governing nation. That act of defiance lit the fuse of the American Revolution and planted the ideological seeds of modern democracy. July 4th wasn't just independence, it was a reinvention of government itself. Number 9, the Louisiana Purchase, 1803. In 1703, the United States made one of the most significant land deals in history, the Louisiana Purchase. For just $15 million, the U.S. acquired 828,000 square miles from France, instantly doubling the nation's size. President Thomas Jefferson initially sought to buy New Orleans, but Napoleon, facing war in Europe and losing interest in the Americas, offered the entire Louisiana territory. This deal opened vast lands for settlement, trade, and exploration. It secured American control of the Mississippi River and New Orleans, vital for commerce and national security. It also fueled Manifest Destiny, the belief that the U.S. was destined to span the continent. But expansion came at a price. The land was home to many Native American tribes, and westward movement triggered displacement, conflict, and broken treaties. Domestically, Jefferson faced criticism, as the Constitution didn't clearly authorize such a purchase. Still, the Louisiana Purchase shaped the nation's future, transforming it from a coastal republic into a continental power, and laying the groundwork for what the United States would become. Number 8, Civil War and Abolition of Slavery, 1861 to 1865. The American Civil War wasn't just a battle over land, it was a brutal conflict over the soul of a nation. From 1861 to 1865, North and South collided in the bloodiest war in U.S. history, with over 600,000 lives lost. At the heart of it all was one issue: slavery. The Southern states, whose economies depended on enslaved labor, seceded after Abraham Lincoln's election, fearing he would end the institution that underpinned their way of life. What began as a fight to preserve the Union evolved into a war for human freedom. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a turning point that redefined the conflict, making the abolition of slavery a central goal. When the Union emerged victorious in 1865, so did a new era. The 13th Amendment officially abolished slavery, closing one of the darkest chapters in American history. But the scars of slavery didn't vanish with the war's end. They remain etched into the nation's conscience, shaping racial struggles that continue to this day. Number 7, the Stock Market Crash and Great Depression, 1929. On October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday, the U.S. stock market collapsed, wiping out billions in wealth and triggering the Great Depression. Years of speculative investing, often with borrowed money, had pushed stock prices to dangerous highs. The Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes in August 1929 and an earlier recession added pressure, leading to panic and mass sell-offs. The impact was devastating. From 1929 to 1933, U.S. real GDP fell by 29% and unemployment hit 25%. Wages dropped sharply, farm prices collapsed, and many farmers lost their land. Around 7,000 banks failed, taking people's life savings with them. Beyond the numbers, the social toll was immense. Families lost everything. Malnutrition affected 1 in 4 school children, and far more in mining towns. Over 2 million people became homeless, wandering in search of work. In response, President Roosevelt launched the New Deal, reshaping the role of government in the economy. Programs like Social Security and the SEC emerged to prevent future collapses. The crash and depression changed America forever, serving as a stark warning about the risks of unchecked speculation and weak regulation. Number 6, Civil Rights Movement, 1950 to 1960. The Civil Rights Movement of the 1950s and 1960s was a fierce, determined push to fulfill America's promise of equality, a promise long denied to Black Americans. Sparked by generations of injustice, the movement gained momentum in 1955 when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. What followed was a wave of grassroots activism, boycotts, marches, sit-ins, and court battles, led by brave individuals and powerful voices like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Ella Baker, and countless others. It wasn't just about ending segregation. It was about dignity, justice, and basic human rights. The movement faced violence, arrests, and brutal opposition, but it never backed down. Landmark victories came with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, dismantling legal segregation and protecting Black Americans' right to vote. But beyond the laws, the Civil Rights Movement changed hearts, minds, and the national conscience, reminding the world that real change demands courage, sacrifice, and the will to keep marching. Number 5, the Moon Landing, 1969. On July 20th, 1969, humanity achieved an unprecedented milestone when Neil Armstrong became the first person to set foot on the moon. As he descended from the lunar module Eagle onto the Sea of Tranquility, his words resonated across the globe. That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. This moment, witnessed by an estimated 650 million people, symbolized not only a technological triumph, but also a unifying human accomplishment. The Apollo 11 mission was the culmination of a fervent space race between the United States and the Soviet Union, driven by Cold War tensions and a desire for scientific supremacy. Launched from Cape Kennedy on July 16, 1969, the mission carried astronauts Neil Armstrong, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. While Collins orbited the moon in the command module Columbia, Armstrong and Aldrin descended to the lunar surface in the Eagle, spending approximately 22 hours on the moon. In the years since Apollo 11, the legacy of the moon landing endures as a testament to what humanity can accomplish through determination, collaboration, and vision. It serves as a reminder that, when united by common goals, people can overcome immense challenges and reach extraordinary heights. Number 4, September 11th, 2001, 9/11 terror attacks. September 11th, 2001 began like any other Tuesday. By mid-morning, everything had changed. 19 al-Qaeda terrorists hijacked 4 planes. 2 crashed into the World Trade Center towers in New York. Another hit the Pentagon. The 4th went down in a Pennsylvania field after passengers fought back. Nearly 3,000 people died. The U.S. response was immediate and sweeping. President George W. Bush declared a war on terror. American forces invaded Afghanistan to dismantle al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. In 2003, the war expanded to Iraq over claims of weapons of mass destruction and alleged terrorist ties. At home, security tightened dramatically. The Department of Homeland Security was created. The USA Patriot Act expanded surveillance. Airports transformed. Government agencies restructured. The country prioritized safety, even as debates over privacy and civil liberties grew louder. September 11th was more than an attack. It was a turning point. It changed how America sees the world and how the world sees America. Its legacy continues to shape global politics, military strategy, and national identity. The scars remain, but so does the resolve to never forget. Number 3, financial crisis and Great Recession, 2008. In 2008, the American economy came dangerously close to collapse. What began as a housing market bubble spiraled into the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. Years of risky lending, unchecked speculation, and the rise of complex financial products like mortgage-backed securities created a house of cards. And when it fell hard. Major banks failed, the stock market plummeted, and millions of Americans lost their jobs, homes, and savings. Iconic institutions like Lehman Brothers disappeared overnight, while others were rescued by historic government bailouts. Fear spread globally, shaking confidence in capitalism itself. The federal government responded with stimulus packages, interest rate cuts, and the controversial Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP. Slowly, the economy recovered, but not without deep scars. Entire communities were devastated, and wealth inequality widened. For many, the Great Recession wasn't just about economics. It was a betrayal, a system that seemed rigged for the powerful at the expense of everyday Americans. It was a wake-up call that reshaped politics, policy, and public trust for years to come. Number 2, election of Barack Obama, 2008. Barack Obama's election as the 44th President of the United States in 2008 marked a transformative moment in American history. As the first African American to hold the nation's highest office, his victory resonated deeply across generations, symbolizing a significant stride toward racial equality and the enduring promise of the American dream. Obama's campaign was distinguished by its innovative use of technology and grassroots organizing. Leveraging social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, the campaign mobilized a diverse coalition of supporters, particularly energizing younger voters and minority communities. This approach not only revolutionized political campaigning, but also fostered a sense of collective empowerment among citizens. The impact of Obama's election extended beyond political boundaries. Research from Rice University indicated a positive effect on the mental health of Black men, highlighting the profound societal implications of his presidency. Internationally, figures like Nelson Mandela recognized the significance of Obama's election. In a letter, Mandela described it as something truly historic, drawing parallels between America's milestone and South Africa's own journey toward democracy. Obama's presidency not only broke historical barriers, but also redefined the possibilities within American politics. His leadership inspired a renewed commitment to civic engagement and underscored the importance of representation in shaping a more equitable society. Number 1. George Floyd, Protests and Racial Reckoning, 2020. On May 25, 2020, the world watched in horror as George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black man, died under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer. His final words on "I can't breathe" ignited a wave of protests not seen in the U.S. since the Civil Rights era. What followed was a national reckoning with systemic racism, police brutality, and the legacy of inequality embedded in American institutions. Millions took to the streets in all 50 states and across the globe, unified by a demand for justice. Statues fell, police reforms were proposed, and conversations that had long been silenced roared back into the mainstream. Corporations, sports leagues, and even the federal government were forced to respond. But beyond the headlines, the George Floyd protests exposed a deeper divide, one that questioned the very meaning of justice, equality, and American identity. It wasn't just a moment, it was a mirror, forcing a nation to confront the uncomfortable truth that the promise of liberty and justice still isn't equal for all. These moments shaped more than history, they shaped identity. Each turning point left a mark on what it means to be American today. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe to USA Revealed, like this video, and tell us in the comments which moment stood out most. Share this video to keep the dialogue alive, because the story of America is still being written.